Well, hey, Bulls fans, welcome to the latest edition of the In the Bullseye podcast. I'm voice of the Bulls, Paul Peck, along with Vice President and Director of Athletics, Mark Alnutt, our semi-regular gathering here to talk about all things that are going on in the world of UB, athletics, and then, of course, nationally as well with some of your prominent roles in that. But this is kind of a weird time of the year, right? You're going so hard through all the seasons, and now it kind of quiets down with spring sports wrapping up. I know you get a little chance to recharge here, don't you?
No, you do. I mean, the thing is, you love seeing your student athletes compete, and you're at that time of year where it's almost over. I mean, we have our track and field program competing in the Mid-American Conference Championships, hopefully being able to go to NCAA regionals, and then hopefully get a qualifier or two at the national championship. But outside of that, that's it. So really, the focus kind of shifts on supporting our young men and women academically, their pursuits academically in regards to, finishing the semester strong. We'll have a a commencement opportunity for our student athletes who are graduating, prior to them actually walking the stage. And that's always a highlight of my year, being able to award our student athletes their student athlete stole that they get to walk across the stage with when they shake the president's hand and recognize those folks for the job that they've done here, and wish them the best moving forward, thank them for what they've done, and then also have them still be engaged with UB and UB athletics. Even prior to that, we had our victors the other night. It's a celebration of all of our student athletes, what they do in the classroom, what they do out in the community, obviously what they do from athletically as well. So it's always great to honor those folks, and it's an SB style type award show where you're so used to seeing our student athletes and their uniforms, their practice gear, run around in sweats, but man, we got a great looking group of student athletes. They dress up to the T for this, and they have a good time. So it's good to honor them that way as well.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like I said, it's an interesting time of the year where you're kind of basking in the glow of all of that, and then there's thinking ahead to a new season that will kind of be the next thing to come up as the summer moves on. So, and speaking of which, a couple of weeks ago, spring football practice wrapped up with the annual blue-white game. It wasn't a great day weather-wise, but it was a terrific turnout. A lot of credit to Bulls fans who made it out to see what the team looks like and to get a look at what Pete Lembo has put together there. What were your thoughts on the spring game, and beyond that, a general wrap-up of the entire month of spring football practice?
Sure. First of all, appreciative of the job that Coach Lembo and their staff did in terms of coming in here right prior to our kids coming back from winter break, and then being able to, establish their system. Well, first of all, coaches are recruiting their rosters almost every day in this day and age, but building those relationships, those key relationships, setting up a structure for their program, being highly communicative to not only our student athletes but our support staff, our administration, and running just a first-class program. So, obviously that then culminates to the spring ball period, which is the 15 practices, which ends on the spring game. And what I can say about the spring game is what you mentioned. I'm so appreciative of our fans who showed up. Yeah, we had a very good turnout. It was not the best day. I think the weather helped us a little bit. It wasn't the constant downpour during the game, but it was downpour prior to, and I want to say like right after the game was over, the rains came again.
That's right.
But I hope that our fans, enjoyed what they had to see. We're putting together, more of a fan fest opportunity for our fans when they come back in the fall, and got a little glimpse of that. We weren't able to put it and show it the scale that we wanted to because of the rain, but we're looking to really continue to enhance that family atmosphere. The game itself, obviously, last practice, you saw. I think defense, flew around. They actually won the game based on the scoring system.
Late,
that
they had led the whole way,
Yep.
and then the offense got hot, took the lead back, and then a couple of 3-and-outs stops
exactly right.
were the difference in the final score.
Yeah, so when you look at it, I thought the defense played very well. You have strengths in particular areas, as Coach would tell you. And then you also have some areas of need where, I feel that, we've addressed some of those through the transfer portal, and we're going to continue to address, some of those on the offensive side of things. You like seeing kind of the local kids kind of step up and see, whether it's, Nick McMillan or even Jake Orlando, two products on the offensive side of the ball that, really stood out and can be forces as we move forward. So, now is the period, as I mentioned, the recruiting period, as they look to build not only for next year's class during the spring evaluation period, but also being able to navigate through the portal. But you continue to build this program. It doesn't just stop spring ball and then, hey, next thing you know, it's the preseason camp in August. I mean, now the summer workout's going to be critical as well for the continued development as they get in the weight room, as they work on speed and agility, but also too, which I know we'll talk later in this podcast, just from a from a football oversight standpoint, the opportunity for skill instruction now in the summer that will be beneficial as we lead into the preseason camp.
What did you learn, or maybe what you expected, or what surprisingly, now that you've had a chance to see Pete in action for a full month, practices, football settings, a game setting, what have you learned a little bit about head coach Pete Lembo?
Well, I tell you, what his background is, and outside of being an old offensive line coach, recently being just kind of the special teams guru. So you really see that
special teams at practice.
You really see that, and just the detail, the attention to detail, the techniques, the fundamentals, the concepts that are all there, and how he sees it, and it's the right way to see it is special teams play a critical part in a game. It's one of three phases of the game, and if you're mistake free or even be in a position to have some opportunities there,
you can win games.
You can win games. You can win games. So you see that. You also see just how his approach is, from which you get a glimpse of that from a game management standpoint. How you see him at practice is more of that CEO type, where he's wandering around, checking out every position group, both sides of the ball, and obviously putting his appropriate input when needed. But the one thing I'll say about Pete, which this, Paul, outside the X's and O's, outside of what that practice structure looks like, outside what the game plan would be, with just really just sincere and committed to building those relationships internally, within the athletic department, also internally to the university community, but also externally as well when it comes to our alumni, our fans that are out there trying to support us to the best of their ability, and even more so people who, hey, what, maybe we haven't tried UB football before, getting those folks involved and educated. So from that standpoint, I mean, he's done a tremendous job, and grade him an A+ for that. And when I say that, it's not because it's something that he feels that he has to do. It's something that he wants to do.
Yeah, and there's no question. Even the short time that I've gotten to know him, he just seems incredibly sincere and excited to be here. And I know as the summer goes on, there'll be some opportunities. If you're a Bulls fan and you haven't had a chance to meet or interact with him, there will be opportunities. Can't recommend that enough. He's just a guy you like from the very beginning because he's just a good man, and we're all happy and excited to see what he can do with this program. So I think it was very encouraging, getting to know and getting to see what Pete's all about. And then there were a lot of signs in that spring game that's got to make the Bulls fans feel happy about where we're headed towards in the fall. Well, one of the things that's going to help Pete and all of your coaches continue to grow in this ever-changing world of college athletics is something that you guys announced in the last couple of weeks. And that's the Nickel City Collective. And give everybody not just an explanation as to what it is and what it's going to do, but how it's going to help all of these coaches and all of these teams moving forward.
Yeah, so this goes back to the acronym that everyone's familiar with, NIL, name, image, and likeness, that pretty much was put into place 3 years ago. We, in the very beginning, put together our Built in Buffalo NIL program, which is really just more concentrated on the educational aspect of what NIL meant. for our donors, for business owners, for our student athletes, trying to, provide those opportunities from a branding standpoint. The rules at the beginning, universities had to be more hands off on this, and it was up to the student athletes. But those rules and bylaws have recently changed that allows the universities to have more direct access to this and input, and essentially do almost everything except for pay a student athlete. So for us, we wanted to work with some of our supporters and put together a collective, and we were able, with the help of people on the outside, with the help of another third party entity, Blueprint Sports. We were able to come up with the Nickel City Collective, and why Nickel City? Because it's paying homage to the city of Buffalo, and it's something that everyone can be a part of. That's going to benefit not just our student athletes, but just from a pride standpoint, from an involvement standpoint. It gets all of Western New York involved. So where we are with this is we've launched it. Have had some positive feedback. Have had some people already being members, to the collective, and essentially it's an opportunity for people to donate, to the collective, and then the collective can distribute funds to our student athletes. But when I say distribute funds to our student athletes, it's just not like, hey, Paul, we're just going to pay you a check for this. It's also tied to a nonprofit opportunity, and what I mean by that is our student athletes are tasked with going to the food bank, going to the Boys and Girls Club, doing something with the Buffalo Public Schools, whatever the case might be, to really also have an impact on the community. So it's not, hey, sitting back getting paid. It is, hey, you know what? Yeah, we're gonna give you an opportunity to utilize your name, image, likeness, to go and read to elementary kids school at school. And for that, compensate you for that value. So again, it's a win-win. It's a win for our student athletes. It's a win for the community, for our kids to be engaged in the community at a they're already engaged at a high level, but even a higher level. And from a retention standpoint of our student athletes, even from a recruitment standpoint of prospective student athletes, it helps us be on par with our peers. But we also think that just the city of Buffalo and Western New York itself, we'll even have more opportunities to be more successful.
So this is something that Becky Burke and George Halkovich and all of your coaches now have the ability to sit down with a potential student athlete and say, hey, aside from the sport part of you coming here, we have all these other opportunities through the collective?
Yes, you can be able to do that. And again, none of our coaches are going to guarantee, hey, you're going to get paid this, and this, but you know what? They'll be able to see that we have this in place. They'll be able to, talk to their potential future teammates, understand, what they're dealing with. But also on top of that, so that's just one piece that we've announced. But we're going to be announcing here very quickly that, we're signing a deal with another third-party vendor from a group licensing standpoint. It's called the Brander Group. And so what that does is it allows our student athletes to be able to utilize a licensee that's approved by the university and put together what we call like NIL stores. So now, someone can click on the website, click on Paul Peck, and click on the NIL store under Paul Peck, and hey, say your jersey number 1, for example, that person can buy a UB branded, not a bootleg type of thing that you see like parents and family members doing, but actually buy a legitimate jersey, or what they call jerseys, a shirt that has the number and the last name on it. And what happens there, everything that's bought under that student athlete's name, that student athlete gets paid a share of the royalty. So you have that piece. We have another. We've extended our partnership with it's called Teamworks, which is a communications platform, but it's also another NIL platform that's more like a LinkedIn page for our student athletes, where they can put together a profile, can kind of show like, hey, their followers on Instagram and Twitter, or X as we call it now, and be able to link businesses or individuals with these student athletes, and be able to again, internally through the system, be able to negotiate contracts for that student athlete to do a task or advertise for a company out there, an
like
appearance, sign autographs, what have you. And then, the great thing about BPS, the Nickel City Collective that's ran by Blueprint Sports, or even, our Teamworks Influencer Exchange, is everything is done within that platform, the contracting aspect, but also more importantly, I think this is the piece that, young people forget, is the taxation that's part of that. So, it helps to be able to have all this in place, but then when we go back to that initial Built in Buffalo NIL program, which this all falls into, we're constantly educating kids about taxation, constantly educating kids, about contracts. We've worked with our law school and had them review some contracts with some NIL deals just to make sure it's on the up and up, and it's nothing that's going to take away from student athletes in the long run. So, to your point, now we're arming, George Halkovich, Pete Limbo, Becky Burke, all you can name the coaches, Scott Smith, whoever, with not just NIL opportunity with Nickel City Collective. It's almost like a portfolio now. Teamworks Influencer Exchange, Nickel City Collective, Brander Group Licensing, Alston money, which is not NIL, but it's a ruling that was passed by the Supreme Court where, we have the opportunity now to award student athletes, academic incentives. So, again, now all this has to be funded.
Sure.
It's not just like this pot of money that you're sitting on, Paul, where I can just lift you up and then just kind of pull the money out.
Nothing there.
Nothing there at all. But, it still has to be funded in a way. And, we are all fundraisers, and, we obviously have to, raise money for the university and athletic department. But it's also important for us to, get in front of people and just share with them, how important this is, especially in the world that we're in. It's not just at the P4 level; it's within the Mid-American Conference, and we want to compete to be able to provide the best experience possible for our current student athletes, but also, be in position to be competitive when we're recruiting prospective student athletes.
Yeah, if you're someone that's listening to this podcast or watching it and you want to be involved, obviously a lot of this information is on the website through ubulls.com, and reach out to the folks, Mark's folks, and they'll get you in the right places if you want to be a part of helping these programs grow through these opportunities for the athletes. And it's a new world we're all living in, and we're all kind of learning on the fly a little bit.
And you'll see more of it too as we move forward, especially we just kicked off all these initiatives, but as we move forward to the new year, in-game opportunities at our various venues, we'll be advertising this. It'll be out there about as much as it is with our Blue and White Fund, because we feel it's equally as important.
Great. One of the other things that you just had wrapped up within the last couple of months or so was a search for a new wrestling coach. And tell us how Donnie Vinson, who, if you've had a chance to see some of our interviews with Donnie, he is certainly a dynamic young coach with a great pedigree. Take us through the search a little bit that helped you decide on Donnie.
Yeah, great pedigree indeed. Outstanding energy. A New York native as well. So when we were putting together the profile for our next wrestling coach, I mean, those were key parts of what we want our next coach to look like. Someone that's going to be able to tie in, to our wrestling community. Obviously the state of New York is strong, but also Pennsylvania, Ohio. So you can have that 6-hour radius.
Kind of a wrestling hotbed of the country.
And remember, I said 6. I think Donnie said, you know what, all we need Mark is 3. Obviously how great wrestling is in this area. So, how we led to him being our next coach is just having more of an understanding once we met with them and had conversations with them, and obviously you have references, but there's a reason why there's references on a resume. I mean, you're not gonna put anyone that's gonna talk bad about you, right?
Not usually.
So I mean, for me, I have relationships with folks nationally in the wrestling world, and when you threw a name out there like Donnie, they're like, man, if you can get him. I hate to use another sport analogy, that would definitely be a home run hire.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that when you look at where he came from Cornell, again, a New York institution. They finished second in the nation, Ivy League school. So just in terms of, that demographic of kids that, we can, be able to
They're
pull.
kind of a blue blood of
Yes,
wrestling, aren't
yes.
they?
Try to pull from that, and even the time that he spent at North Carolina State, and what they've done down there, and he has credentials himself as a student athlete. Being an All-American. So he had an opportunity to be on the podium at the championship, and also an academic All-American as well. So he knows the importance of the value of education and what it is to be a student athlete and to be able to use your God-given talent for this sport, but use it as a vehicle to get a tremendous education and be able to parlay that into a great life. So, we're excited to have him. Tremendous energy. He's met with the team, and very similar to when it hired Pete Limbo. Just unsolicitedly, and having student athletes come in and they're excited about being able to learn from him, be able to be coached from him, and be able to move forward. So
He joked with us that he may have the longest hair of any wrestling coach in the country. That was not a turnoff for you. Yeah, that was not a problem for you.
not at all. Not at all. It's no. I mean, definitely. I appreciate that expression, but really the thing that really got me again is how he's able to just kind of articulate where he saw this program and where it can go. And again, I think he told me in the interview that, yeah, it's going to be in a ponytail, so it'll be all right. That's fine. So it's not just all, the flowing locks going all over the place.
Well, right. He doesn't have anybody trying to grab it anymore like he might have at one point in his life. So you touched on it very briefly earlier. Kind of wrapped up the spring season here, and I know you're all powerful around here, but you don't always have control of the weather. But on the softball front, you finally did this year, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. We're so pleased to be able to install artificial turf on the field. That you talk about the student athlete experience, and it was a grass field previously. The drainage wasn't the best, so even if it wasn't on a rainy day, but we're just coming off some a downpour, we still had to find an alternate place to play. And what really took it over the top for me, and this is definitely no disrespect, but we had to play a series 2 years ago at a high school, at a local high school, and that's just not the experience that you want for a Division I, student athlete. So when we had the opportunity to be able to, look at this project, knew how it was going to get funded, we went all in, and we wanted to, turf the field to allow at least opportunity to play. So again, a damp field that can't drain that well is not going to be an opportunity for us to not get the games in. So, it was the first year for it. I tell you, probably the more competitive game that was had on that field was not actually a softball game by, our team. It was our staff kickball game back in August. So you can imagine if you get a lot of competitive people together.
You didn't pull a hamstring?
Oh, I did not. No hamstring pull, no Achilles partial tear, no groin,
Must have been fun.
It was fun. There's about, oh gosh, looking at Matt over there, I don't know, 26 people that played, and as he will tell you, I know we're recording here. The language was not always necessarily clean. There were some people getting after it. I'm not going to name the name of the coach, but we had a first-year coach at the time where you kind of got a glimpse in terms of how he's going to be on the sideline, on the court, so to speak. Hopefully, I didn't give it away. But it was fun. It was really fun to get out there. When we completed the project, it was before our softball team came back, and we're like, hey, we're going to break this in the right way. But no. So softball, obviously they're done. Men's and women's tennis is done. And then, like I mentioned before, track and field, they're competing here in MAC championships. And, you got to get, Jim Garnham, our throws coach, legendary, he's going to retire here this year. So we honored him at our last home meet. And, you look at, his streak of just having champions in the throws and the max and a national champion, All-American. So, he'll be missed. As I share with him, I say, hey, Coach, I know you're going to get bored and you're going to want to come back and just kind of check out, that ring, that throw ring
That's
there.
right.
And who knows, man, maybe have a tip or two for our student athletes down the road.
All right, we always like to check in with you and find out on a national level, because you are a member of the NCAA's Football Oversight Committee, which is, I feel like you guys are spitting out new rules and changes and adjustments on a weekly basis over the last couple of years. But what's the latest nationally? You touched on it briefly. One of the differences being, as the football players come back for summer workouts, they can be more than just workouts. They can actually be football related.
Yeah, so that was a change last year, I believe, where we added the skill instruction. My years getting it, kind of all mixed up.
I think it started last year.
I think it started last year, because prior to that, it was just more so, the strength and conditioning aspect of it and watching film. So they added you can actually have skill instruction and have the coaches out there, being able to do it. So, there's a lot that's happening from, first of all, you have your football rules committee, which, is over here, and then you have the football oversight. So football rules committee, passed and it was approved by the NCAA. Technology on the sideline.
Pete Lembo mentioned that's the first game he's ever coached in his entire life with a 2-minute warning.
Yes. So a couple things. So let's talk technology first. So you'll see on the sideline there's going to be the tablets like they have in the NFL, but with one major difference: the tablets in the NFL, the surfaces that they have in the NFL are just still shots. So you'll actually have tablets on the bench with video. That
so the guys can go back and review
watch
the all
video,
22 of a play.
Yeah, watch video, or watch dig in specifically on O linemen and look at steps and everything. Look at coverages of the quarterback. So, that's one major piece there. The other piece that was passed too is now we have coach to player communication. So very similar to the NFL. There will be one helmet on offense, quarterback, and then one helmet on defense, and so I'm pretty sure you still have all the signaling and all the signs and everything, but now you'll have the offensive coordinator, whoever's calling the plays, to be able to be in the ear of the quarterback, right? Up until there's a 15.
Exactly like the NFL has been doing it for years.
Yeah,
right?
like a 15-second shut off where you
Yes.
can't do anything, but you can guide the quarterback, and then very similar on defense as well. Where that's where you can, whether it's a safety or linebacker or whoever it might be, where the D coordinator can be in their ear about certain calls, what have you. So that's the initial step right there, and then as you look in the future, you'll have that, and there's even potential of some type of wearables that you can be able to wear, something more integrated in your wristband where the play comes across or what have you. So
is it possible that all 11 players could have it, so that everybody can have almost
11.
like a watch, and you
Yep.
can say play number,
Yes,
27B.
whatever the case might be.
Right.
And just kind of, what all this stemmed from was the signal stealing that occurred. So, you'll see probably more of the wearables in the future, but right now it is the coach to player communication.
That's a big step.
That is a big step.
Big
That's a huge step. So, as we move forward, from a football oversight committee. So what else is happening? Obviously you got those rules. You mentioned the 2-minute. There will be like a 2-minute, very similar to the NFL at the prior to the half and prior to the end of the game, which to be honest with you, it's not an extra TV timeout. But
I know there's a misconception about that. It is not adding a
Yep.
timeout. It is taking one of the previous timeouts and
moving
locking
it
it in as a
Yes.
2-minute warning.
Yes. I mean, how many times have we been at games right before half and there's all of a sudden 3 TV timeouts because they have to get it in? So this will help. This will help.
Changes the strategy too.
It does. It does.
A team playing from behind
Yeah.
or trying to protect the lead now has an extra timeout.
And as you know, I mean, sometimes people are resistant change, but last year when they eliminated the, after first down, the clock still runs.
Right.
People were talking about that was taking away a lot of plays. I think at the end of the day, it probably took
like
about 5
6
plays.
or 8, right?
Yeah,
6 to 8, I think.
something like that. So really, the other big thing focusing on is recruiting calendar.
Mm-hmm.
We've all heard from coaches, and I've lived it as an administrator, where the early signing date was right in the middle of the transfer portal, which is also right in the middle of bowl preparation, or you even might be at a bowl site. So one move that has occurred is now the early signing period is that Wednesday, and this is coming from Football Oversight Group, that Wednesday prior to championship weekend. So you have that signing date there, so you can be able to sign, your high school kids, your what have you, that period, and then that following Monday is when the portal opens up. So it's not all the confusion. I mean, we've also heard stories that, gosh, a high school kid might have an offer somewhere, then the portal opens up. Well, gosh, you know what? We had 2 experienced people in that position. We're going to take them. That offer is no longer out there. So that's going to be very beneficial. And then, as we move forward, there's talk about, potentially even 3rd signing period. So if that
like
gets
before
approved before the season, we're talking in late June.
Interesting.
In late June, which for
so kids
us,
could lock in before their senior year.
Kids can lock in before their senior year, and there, there's some
which
pros
is when
and cons.
Most kids commit verbally anyway.
Yeah, there's some pros and cons, to that as we walk through that. But that opportunity is there, and then really just being able to have more contact with juniors now. So if you have that June signing period, now you have that signing period now earlier than what it was that 3rd week of Wednesday. You have that opportunity to actually have contact with them at their schools and what have you. So all very important stuff as we move forward. And then the big one that we're working on, and we have our next meeting, and ultimately it'll be approved. We're looking for approval from the council. Is you have your head coach, and you have your 10 assistant coaches, and then you have your 4 graduate assistants. What else do you have, Paul? You have like your analysts.
Yeah.
You have your quality
Multiple
control.
Analysts,
you have your quality control people. So there's
some of the teams have almost 50 coaches.
So there's
or something like a coach.
There's a concept out there, right now, that will allow those folks to actually coach and give and provide skill instruction, because it's one of those things where you watch practice. Okay, sometimes you can't tell who's doing what and what role it is, and even in games, you have some of your coaches that are up in the box, and you have others talking to your student athletes. So why not make it for those folks to have the opportunity to provide skill instruction, especially with the tablets that are going to be happening now. There's going to be 18 of them. Each team's going to have up to 18 of them. So hey, who's holding those tablets? And heck, if I'm an analyst, you're the student athlete, and I show you the tablet and kind of walk you through it. I mean, so again, that's modernizing everything. I mean, there's kind of pros and cons to that. People think that, hey, with all the numbers that are out there, especially at the P4 level,
budgetary
is more,
part of it, right?
There's just more opportunity there. You can talk about budgets as well, but also I think at our level, it's not going to be one of those things where, hey, let's just go hire. All these folks are hired, because, as if you have too many voices, giving too much instruction, that can kind of confuse people as well. So, but if you have what we have, 4 additional people, pretty much on both sides of the ball to be able to help out, I think that works out well for us.
All right, we got some MAC football news in the last couple of weeks, and it's time to cue the music for the big MAC news, Mark, and I'm sure you were the point person on making this happen. What was known as the Arizona Bowl will now be the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl, presented by Gin and Juice. Are you a big Snoop Dogg guy?
I was a big Snoop Dogg guy back in the day, and still am. It was a Barstool Sports Bowl. First and foremost, phenomenal bowl down in Tucson. I've heard some people have had some outstanding experiences, down there from a student-athlete standpoint, coaches, and also staff. So, went through a sponsorship change, and now you got Snoop Dogg involved. So, when you have a name like that associated to a bowl game, people are like, oh, wow, and so that helps, Maction, so to speak. It helps our conference. I know that they'll still put their best foot forward for the student athlete experience, which I'm appreciative of. Now, we talked off air before we got on here. It's got to be, kind of investigate and see, and see what those what the player gifts are, as we move forward. But again, it's one of those things where. We'd love to be able to participate in that bowl in this first year and bring back that. I want to know what the trophy looks like. Holy cow! I want to know, is it on the rocks, or what we got going on?
I think you've got a lot of teams in the MAC that are going to want to be up there with Snoop Dogg on a platform collecting a MAC a bowl trophy. So there's a cool goal, and maybe it'll happen for Pete and the guys this year, and that would be an awesome experience. All right, I want to wrap up here with you on something that's getting a little bit of momentum momentum in the last couple of weeks. As we've seen the world of college athletics, particularly the football now, Power 4, and good for you for seeing not Power 5, Power 4. You've adjusted there. The gap tending to widen a little bit between now the Power 4 and the Group of 5, and there's been some thought that should there be a Group of 5 playoff separate from the college football playoff? Should there be a Group of 5 top 25 poll on a weekly basis? These are ideas that are not definitive yet, but are gaining some momentum. I'm curious what your thoughts are, because I get the sense that some athletic directors love it and some don't want to be differentiated.
Yeah. So the first thing I would say about this is we've worked very hard to build this college football playoff to a 12 team. Currently, who knows, it could be 14, after the 2-year period. But, we have access as a Group of 5, as a Group of 5 program to be able to be in that playoff, which I think is very valuable for whatever conference gets into that playoff. So my view on that is, I don't want us to, give up that access. I think access is critically important. People might say, well, gosh, Mark, you'll go in as a 12 seed, whoever that school is, and then, you'll go someplace and lose. Well, still, it's access. It's still opportunity, for a program and for a conference to make a name for itself. And you never know when you play these games, what can happen as we move forward. The idea of a Group of 5, poll, sure, kind of keep it within the normal AP and coaches poll, which includes, both P4 and G5 schools. But, it's very similar in basketball when they have that mid-major poll. Wouldn't mind seeing that. Mm-hmm. Who's in the top 25 and where we are as a conference. I think that's a good thing. In terms of a separate G5 playoff, the first thing that I would want to ensure before even having more discussions is, keeping the bowl structure, okay? And what I mean by that is, you already have the CFP that's going to be, over here. If there's a G5 playoff, is it within the bowl structure, or is it somewhere without, outside that bowl structure that, potentially could hurt, those cities and those regions that, they spend a lot of time, energy, and effort, money to try to host that, to try to put together a phenomenal experience, for our student athletes. And, I would say this, when you look at, bowls, particularly, for us, G5 opportunities where, you don't see as many opt-outs, so to speak, as the ones that, hey, the P4 level, they didn't make the CFP, so they're playing in, the Music City Bowl. Or I even look at, my alma mater last year when Missouri played Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. Well, it wasn't the same matchup because on both sides of, on both sidelines, you had a lot of people opting out, and you never know what can happen. But if you look at, a lot of our games that happen early, yes, you do have opt-outs, but not as many. So I would like to really preserve the bowl structure. And if there was kind of a separate, G5, you have your top team go to the CFP, and then, maybe you have like a 4-team deal. Is that tied in to some of those bowl games? Because, I know fans vary on this, but, if you win 6 games, you have opportunity to play in a bowl.
Mm-hmm.
You have opportunity to play in the Snoop Dogg presented by Gin.
Imagine if the Snoop Dogg Bowl is for the G5 championship. Can't imagine what the trophy would look like at that one.
Yeah, how about that? So, you heard me say this. I'm definitely interested in learning more. But again, for me, it would be not separate from CFP. Still have access to it. The second thing is to, preserve the bowls in some way, shape, and form. And then the third thing would be, if we do this, could it be contained within that structure, the bowl structure that helps, the bowls, which in terms, helps us. So definitely not for complete separation. I'm more for like an integration, but also recognizing too that, it could be exciting to see, teams 2, 3, 4, 5 in the G5.
Like-minded, competitive teams.
Sure. I don't think it needs to be a 12-team G5 playoff. No, not at all. But hey, you got the top 5 teams that are out there, some in some way, shape, or form. The one goes to CFP, and the other 4, are able to, play some games, within the existing, bowl structure, I think that's a good thing.
All right, good stuff. We covered a lot of ground, a lot of stuff going on, which means now you get the rest of the summer off. So.
Already in preparation for next year, my friend.
I'm sure you are. So we will catch up again with Mark as we get closer to the start of the 2024 fall season. It'll get going. Obviously, football players are here July, training camp August, season opener on August 29th here at home for football. So it's not all that far away. So enjoy a little downtime with the family, and we'll catch up with you again at some point.
Paul,
After the summer.
Paul, I rarely correct you, but I'm going to have to correct you this. You said football players back in July. No, they're back in June.
Oh, okay.
They're back in
there
the
you go.
beginning of June. You got men's and women's basketball back in June, so it's it begins before we know it.
All right, there you go. Always a pleasure to catch up and get the latest from Mark Alnutt, Vice President and Director of Athletics. We hope you enjoyed this long-range and wide-ranging conversation. Covered a lot of topics, but we've got you all up to speed on what's going on here in Bulls Nation. We thank you for joining us on this In the Bullseye podcast.